I understand as we get closer to the season, it's going to be more important to look at these redraft rankings and really try to nail them down. So here we're going to go through my top 12 running back rankings for redraft leagues in full PPR formats this next season, starting off with Christian McCaffrey at 1. Now with CMC, I got to be honest with you, right? Well, he has been the clear league winner. I mean, God knows how many seasons now. He's been a running back that's been able to write the fantasy football record books in multiple different seasons. He's still good. He's not as good as he once was. All right, let's be realistic with the range of outcomes. Couple red flags, one being his age. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, okay, Christian McCaffrey going into his age 27th season, his 7th year in the NFL. He's going to fall off. We know running backs fall off at this age. Okay, I'm not going to say that entirely because keep in mind, he's still my running back 1 this season, but it's still at least something we have to keep in the back of our heads, knowing that historically speaking, running backs typically don't turn into true league winning options with over a 17% win rate if they are in their age 7 season. Generally, this is when these guys begin to go on the decline. The other red flag that you're going to have with Christian McCaffrey is the involvement that Elijah Mitchell has in this offense. If we go through history, we've seen Kyle Shanahan decide to use a running back by committee season after season after season. Now, with that being said, we actually got 2 different glimpses this past year. Christian McCaffrey with an injured Elijah Mitchell, where CMC was not used in a committee. CMC was that typical bell cow running back that we've known him as for his entire career in Carolina. But we did see 4 games with Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell on the field at the same time. And in those contests, Christian McCaffrey went from averaging 15.5 carries per game without Elijah Mitchell to only 10.5 carries per game with Elijah Mitchell. He went from averaging over 5 receptions per game without Elijah Mitchell down to 4.5 receptions per game with Elijah Mitchell. He went from averaging about 22 fantasy points per game without Elijah Mitchell to 15 fantasy points per game with Elijah Mitchell. Now, this is a little deceiving in that if you're looking at this split, those 4 games with Mitchell, a couple of them were complete blowouts where they didn't have to go out there and use Christian McCaffrey at 100%. They were able to save him in the second half with this team having clear Super Bowl aspirations. But what I would say is, with how good this 49ers team is overall, that will probably be the case in a lot of games this next year where Kyle Shanahan will decide to save Christian McCaffrey and maybe not give him the same workload that he had in Carolina. With that being said, even if Christian McCaffrey's not going to see his typical, say, 18 carries per game and 10 targets per game that you know the true workhorse running back to be in Carolina, in San Francisco, even if the volume goes down a bit, the efficiency may go up in that this is just generally going to be a way better offense. You'll have more sustained drives, more trips to the red zone, and more touchdown opportunities for Christian McCaffrey. So it's a double-edged sword here where the volume may go down, the efficiency may go up. Still clearly my running back 1, but he's not a running back that has 0 red flags this next season. So that's why even if I'm in a casual redraft format, I'm not going to take Christian McCaffrey ahead of Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. Now, if I'm in my casual redraft league where you're only going to start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex, there I'm going to take Christian McCaffrey at pick 3 overall. I just think that you probably still have to take Jefferson Chase ahead of him, given the fact that they have the elite level ceilings, as well as really no red flags with their profile. Now, going over to our next running back, we're going to be looking at Austin Ekeler, another running back that we can say, well, yes, he has extremely strong marks on his profile, right? I mean, this is a running back that back-to-back seasons now has been a top 3 option from a points per game perspective. This is a running back in an elite level offense. This is a running back that's averaged over a touchdown per game over the past 2 seasons. There are so many strong suits to Austin Ekeler, but we have the same concerns that you would have with Christian McCaffrey, right? Ekeler was in that same 2017 draft class, so this will be Austin Ekeler's 7th season in the NFL. This is going to be his age 28 season, so you're going to have the red flag when it comes to the overall age cliff that's upcoming for Austin Ekeler. You'll also have a red flag in that if you go ahead and look at the involvement of Ekeler as a pass catcher, this has been under the context where you've only had Mike Williams and Keenan Allen as capable receiving down options for the Los Angeles Chargers over the past 2 seasons. And both wide receivers over the past 2 years have missed time where Ekeler has actually seen an expanded role in those games. Now this next year, you have Quentin Johnston coming over to the Los Angeles Chargers. Clearly, a completely different position. But if you add in one additional weapon here, you may have it where Ekeler doesn't have to see his 17% target share that he had this past season. Now, of course, he's a running back that is in an elite offense that is arguably the second best passing down running back in the NFL behind Christian McCaffrey. So even if I'm bringing up the red flags here, I do want to still highlight the fact that these are very, very strong options in a PPR format. And there's a reason that they're my number 1 and number 2 overall running backs. Now going over to 3, we're going to have Bijan Robinson. Now with Bijan, I mean, he is a running back that is just an incredible prospect, right? I mean, we talked about him starting back in January on the Dynasty channel, just looking at him, drooling over him. And y'all know I'm a former Texas Longhorn, so of course, I'm going to be extremely biased here. I got to interview Bijan Robinson at the NFL draft, so I'm going to be extremely biased here. But if we look at his score in our running back prospect model, this is all metrics driven based on what we have proven to be predictive of future running back success in this model. He is right alongside what Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott, Jonathan Taylor, Todd Gurley, Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, a couple running backs we'll talk about at the end of this video, how they scored going into the NFL. The only guys that we've seen since 2014 score as high as Bijan Robinson were Leonard Fournette as well as Saquon Barkley. Those are the only guys. Okay. So the man's phenomenal. He's going to an offense where he can reasonably lead the NFL in carries this next season. On top of this, they should use him as a pass catcher. We don't know how many passing attempts are going to be to go around in Atlanta, but he should be able to catch the ball out of the backfield. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we are going to go Saquon Barkley here at 4. Now, with Saquon Barkley, dependent on the platform that you are drafting on, you may be able to get a significant discount on him. Now, right now, I'm in a lot of underdog drafts. Clearly, these are not rankings for underdog leagues, but I'm just explaining because I'm sure y'all are watching those live streams every single day we have on the channel where we're in these underdog drafts, and Saquon Barkley there is falling to the end of the second round, and I cannot stop drafting him. But the reason he's falling to the end of the second round in underdog leagues in particular is that, 1, obviously, the contract situation. 2, the fact that on underdog, wide receivers will be pushed up. 3, his receiving down usage is not going to be as valuable in that half PPR format in comparison to a full PPR league when comparing him to Jonathan Taylor as well as Nick Chubb. Now, these are going to be rankings for your casual full PPR format. And in that format, I will honestly be fine taking Saquon Barkley as a round 1 player. Now, of course, I recommend you hopping in some underdog drafts, being able to get the man at the end of round 2. I mean, of course, if y'all are not already on Underdog, you can always sign up. It's never too late. This is also the same spot where you are seeing all those player props. If you want to check those out, you can go sign up for Underdog with the link in the live chat description comment section. When you sign up with promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 100% deposit match up to $100. So it's pretty much free for you to check out. Plus, with a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy and promo code FLOCK, you're going to get my 2023 fantasy football rankings plus a free trial to flockfantasy.com. Available in damn near every state. You can see the map right here. Just pause it. Underdog's most likely in your state. Of course, best ball, so no time commitment at all during the season. So I drafted over 700 teams and won $150,000 on Underdog last year. But if we're looking at Barkley here, I mean, this is a running back that, going back to what we had with our league winning video, he checks all the boxes we look for, right? This is a running back that hits the receiving down usage mark in terms of his market share numbers, where he checks that box. This is a running back that is also a rusher where he is going to see 75% of the carries in his own backfield. This is also a running back that, unlike a few of these names ahead of him, he is in that sweet spot for the age that we are looking for with these guys going into age 26, not that dreaded age 27, age 28 season. So I love drafting Barkley. I understand I'm going to be higher on him than most, but in a full PPR format, I just simply think that he is going to see more targets out of the backfield. I think he's going to have more receptions in comparison to what you're saying with, say, Jonathan Taylor, our next guy, right? Now, Taylor's also a running back that you are getting a significant discount on in these underdog drafts. I mean, with Jonathan Taylor, he is going in the middle of the second round, and he is very similar to what you had with Saquon Barkley. He checks the boxes that we were looking for. His market share numbers this past season, 67% in terms of his carry percentage out of this backfield. His target share rate was over 10%. Those are what we are wanting to see. On top of this, with Jonathan Taylor, this is a running back that's in that prime age range. He was just drafted in 2020, and if you remember, he was the 101 in 2022 fantasy drafts for a lot of people, including myself. Trust me, I wish I would have had Christian McCaffrey out of him, but how was I supposed to know that Jonathan Taylor was going to get injured this past season? So yeah, it's kind of simple. I know a lot of people want to overthink it, but if a running back is one, talented, two, most importantly, has the opportunity we are looking for in their offense when it comes to their rushing market share, as well as their receiving down usage. And then three, they're in the age range that we want. Those are guys we should be targeting. If you're in your casual PPR redraft league, I'm fine taking CMC, Ekeler, Bijan, Barkley, Taylor, all round one. And honestly, I'm fine throwing Nick Chubb there in round one as well. A lot of people now are making the argument to take Nick Chubb over Jonathan Taylor, take Nick Chubb over Saquon Barkley. And if you were going to be playing in, say, a non-PPR format or maybe even a half PPR league, I think you can make a strong argument to go ahead and take Nick Chubb over those guys, right? Now, the simple reason and why I'm going to have Nick Chubb down here after those players is because we haven't seen Nick Chubb develop as the pass catcher yet. Now, of course, I think he can, right? With the departure of Kareem Hunt, we've seen Nick Chubb in games with no Kareem Hunt have a much larger workload. Games with no Kareem Hunt since 2019, Nick Chubb has averaged 2.9 targets per game, whereas games with Hunt, he's been down at 1.9 targets per game. So he picks up an extra target per game. Hell, he picks up an extra about 2.5 fantasy points per game. Right now, Jerome Ford is the next running back in this backfield. I don't necessarily think Ford's someone we have to worry about. Plus, this should be a much better offense overall with Deshaun Watson getting a full season here in comparison to what we've seen over the past 3 seasons with, Baker Mayfield, Case Keenum, Nick Mullins, Jacoby Brissett, and then Deshaun Watson unprepared, right? So I think it will be the best situation we've seen with Nick Chubb through his entire NFL career. I'm fine if you wanted to go ahead and make an argument to put Chubb ahead of those other guys in a non-PPR format. Just in a full PPR league, I'm going to give the edge to the guys that we've already seen be great pass catchers at the NFL level. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Tony Pollard. Now, if you're looking at Pollard, this is a running back that just with the simple napkin math, he's going to score 1 million points this next season. It's almost hard to even talk about. It's almost hard to even project because Tony Pollard has only gotten better since he's entered in the NFL. If you were looking at the natural trajectory, Tony Pollard should most likely be a top 5 running back this next season in fantasy. Very rarely will I ever say this in fantasy football analysis because I think if you live your life this way, I think if you go through and try to make fantasy football decisions this way, most likely it's wrong, right? Every decision I make, I want to be able to come here and have an explanation for you, such as I'm ranking Chubb behind Taylor and Barkley because they're going to be better pass catchers. I don't know why I don't have Tony Pollard higher than this. It's maybe just a gut reaction, and maybe I can say it's because the ankle injury and his rehab process. I don't have a good reason for you. If you look at the napkin math, if this Dallas Cowboys depth chart remains the same as it is today by the time we get to September, Tony Pollard should be higher than this in these rankings. Now, I reserve the right to move him up. I think there's an outside chance, though, that Kareem Hunt, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, a running back goes to Dallas, and the Dallas Cowboys don't necessarily want to give Tony Pollard a 75% workload mark, as we've seen with guys like Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor historically. Now, going down to our next tier, we're going to have Derrick Henry here at 8. Honestly, I think you could make an argument to have Henry a little bit below this with his historical involvement as a receiver. But what's interesting enough with Derrick Henry is this is a running back that this past season actually almost saw a 10% target share. That's something we've never had with Derrick Henry before. Usually Derrick Henry's hovering around like 6%. Derrick Henry is about like 1.5 targets per game. No, Derrick Henry was at 2.5 targets per game this past season, involving himself as a receiver more and more on a team that clearly didn't really have any weapons to go to through the air. Now, there are red flags with Derrick Henry, which is why he is going to be much lower than where he's historically finished. Over the past 3 seasons, Derrick Henry, on average, has been the running back 3 from a fantasy points perspective, clearly down here at running back 8. I'm expecting Henry to get worse because of these red flags. One being his age. I can't sit here and act like age is a concern when we're looking at guys like CMC, Austin Ekeler, and call those red flags and ignore it with Derrick Henry. Hell, Derrick Henry is going into his age 29 season. Okay, this is a real concern with Derrick Henry. Now, on top of this with Derrick Henry, there's a chance the Tennessee Titans are a bottom 5 team in the NFL this next season. If the Titans are a bottom 5 team, you don't necessarily want a running back that excels on first and second downs. We know typically if you find yourself with a top 5 running back in fantasy from a horrendous team in the NFL, it's going to be that guy with an incredible workload as a pass catcher because this team's going to be playing catch up and in clear passing down scenarios through the majority of contest. So that's another clear red flag with Derrick Henry. So the big red flags, the offense he's playing in, his age, and the fact that his particular skill set may not be a good one to target on a piss poor team. Of course, Derrick Henry's big, Derrick Henry's strong, Derrick Henry's fast. Maybe that's all we need to know. Going over to our next guy, Josh Jacobs, is one of the reasons we won $150,000 on Underdog last year. I mean, with Josh Jacobs, my most drafted running back last season, much harder to take him this year, right? Because with Jacobs, last year you were getting him at a severe discount. Now, I mean, if you are in like a casual PPR, say redraft league, you're going to have to take Josh Jacobs in the second round. And with Jacobs, he has some of the same concerns as Henry, in that with Jacobs, this is a running back that will not be on a good team this next year. Like, we really don't even know what the quarterback situation's going to be. Now, I want to sit here and say, okay, yeah, Josh Jacobs, it doesn't really matter what the quarterback position's going to be. He's going to make it work, blah, blah, blah. It's just hard to guarantee that, right? I really hope it's the case. I really hope that Josh Jacobs can go out here and do it again. What's nice is even if he is on the franchise tag, even if he is, off his rookie deal, in 2019, he was the youngest player in the NFL draft, or at least the youngest running back in the NFL draft. So you don't really have to worry about the age at least. Now, our next guy, Rhamondre Stevenson at 10, is very similar to Tony Pollard. If this New England Patriots depth chart remains the same in September as it is today, Rhamondre Stevenson should be significantly higher than he is here. Rhamondre Stevenson was a running back that crushed it last season. His involvement as a pass catcher was reminiscent of what you had with prime Alvin Kamara back in the day. Rhamondre Stevenson was going out there and just racking up reception after reception after reception, essentially being the leading receiver for the New England Patriots this past season. Now, this is a team that loses Damian Harris, so maybe Rhamondre Stevenson even expands his role on first and second down. Just because we've seen the New England Patriots over the past 10 seasons decide to deploy a running back by committee, it's not necessarily a guarantee that will be the case this next season. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rank Rhamondre Stevenson in the middle of this tier, with the possibility that you have Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt going to New England. But if none of those running backs go to New England, Rhamondre Stevenson will move as high as 8 in these rankings. So he'll move to the very top of this tier and possibly jump up a tier up to the Tony Pollard range. But if one of those guys go to New England, then he's probably going to fall behind our next option in Breece Hall. Breece Hall, I understand. A lot of people are going to go down and scream at me, Mason, how dare you rank Breece Hall here? Mason, don't you understand? Breece Hall is coming off a torn ACL. No running backs are good coming off. Okay, let's be very clear. If Breece Hall was not coming off a torn ACL, Breece Hall would be up there with Austin Ekeler and Bijan Robinson in these rankings. Breece Hall would be a borderline top 3 running back in fantasy this next season. It's all about the risk and the reward. It's all about the adjusted price point. If fantasy football was as simple as we have these very basic rules, such as no matter what, you cannot draft the running back coming off a torn ACL, no matter how good they are, no matter how good their offense should be, no matter their involvement as a pass catcher, no matter how clear the ACL tear was, then yeah, fantasy football would be easy. There'd be no reason to put in effort. There'd be no reason to do research. But it's more of a gray area than that. It's a little more nuanced. We have to go through, we have to be realistic and say, well, yes, we have to be hesitant to go through and go all in on Breece Hall here. If you're getting him as a low-end RB1, high-end RB2, he has upside. He has risk. to maybe be a low-end RB2, high-end RB3 if he's not 100% recovered by the time we get to week 5, 6, 7. But he also has the upside to be a top 3 running back in fantasy. So I'm fine. If you're in like a casual redraft format, want to draft him at the 2-3 turn, I'd go ahead for it. Now, going to our next guy, we're going to throw like Travis Etienne and Najee Harrison back to back. I feel like both of these running backs are guys that are extremely hated on. They're giving me a little bit of Najee Harris vibes from a year ago, where these are guys that both went in round 1 of the NFL draft in 2021. I mean, clearly Travis Etienne hasn't been great, given the fact that come on. So running back that was injured his rookie season, gets to Jacksonville, and at the beginning portion of the season in Jacksonville this past year, he was on a very bad offense. Now, once they removed James Robinson, and once you had Travis Etienne in an offense with a thriving Trevor Lawrence, the man was good. The man was great at times. Now, the main concern with Travis Etienne is the fact that this was a running back that didn't catch the ball this past season. We saw him do it in college. I mean, Travis Etienne was averaging 4 receptions a game in college. I think he can get back there, but that's going to be the number one thing we have to look at. And with Najee Harris, he was a horrible selection last year. If you drafted Najee Harris in round 1, yes, it was a bad call. You shouldn't have done it. But we need to be realistic with where we stand now. Najee Harris, instead of going in round 1, is going in the middle of round 4 of underdog drafts. And your casual ESPN redraft leagues, you'll be able to get Najee Harris at the beginning of the 3rd round. And Najee Harris is not only significantly cheaper, but he's in a significantly better situation. Starting off with the fact that 1, he's not injured coming into this next season. 2, he's not going to be dealing with Mitchell Trubisky and a rookie quarterback. Kenny Pickett should be much better. And 3, the Pittsburgh Steelers invested into their offensive line in the offseason. So with all of those different factors, I think you're actually primed to see a Najee Harris bounce back, which is why if you're going to get him in round 3 of your casual redraft league, I'm all about it. And if you're going to get him in round 4 of your underdog draft, I'm all about it. But I think that's all we have for you here. Again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. If you have not done so already, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, of course. And if you want to check out any of the props you saw on the screen, or if you want to get into a draft with us, you know we're drafting every single day on the live stream. Both can be found on Underdog Fantasy. Link in the description, link in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK will get you a 100% deposit match up to $100, plus my 2023 fantasy football rankings, as well as a free trial to flockfantasy.com. But again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day, and really hope I get to draft with you in a live stream sometime soon.